All right. Lessons in liturgy today. We are going to look at the very last paragraph in the Amidah. We are on page, if you'd like to follow along, we're on page 166 in the Sidor Lev Shalem. So last time we looked at what was the last blessing in the Amidah, and this, which was Sim Shalom, and this week we are looking at this additional paragraph that we read after the last blessing in the Amidah. So this is on page 166. It starts like this: Elohai Netzor Lishoni Merah. My God, keep my tongue from evil and my lips from deceit. Help me ignore those who slander me. Let me be humble before all. Open my heart to your Torah that I may pursue your mitzvot. Frustrate the designs of those who plot evil against me. Nullify their schemes. Act for the sake of your name. Act for the sake of your triumph. Act for the sake of your holiness. Act for the sake of your Torah. Answer my prayer for the deliverance of your people. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. That line may be familiar. Yihi yula ratzoni refi, v'higyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. And then we say, Oseh shalom. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu yaseh shalom. May the one who makes peace on high bring peace to us and to all Israel. And let's say, Amen. So what's going on with this prayer here? There's no blessing, first of all. There's no Baruch Atah Adonai, because this is not a prayer. Actually, this was a moment at the end of the Amidah that was set aside specifically for personal prayers. Before this was codified, we know that after the Amidah, there was an opportunity for the person who was praying to say anything that he or she wanted, to pray for their personal needs, the welfare of their community, whatever they were ready to pray for. The Amidah is fixed. We don't add and we don't subtract from the words of the Amidah, but there is a moment for personal prayer. Now here, you might have said, and rightly so, how can you say this is a personal prayer if the liturgy is fixed? Well, this liturgy is only fixed because of what happened historically in the creation of Sidurim. And in order to help me get the history exactly right, I'm going to be using this book here. This is a great tool, My People's Prayer Book. So Lawrence Hoffman, he writes a historical commentary to the prayers in this, and I'm going to use his commentary to help us understand what exactly happened that this prayer became fixed. Why don't we have an opportunity for private prayer anymore? So I'll start here. It says that the Talmud provides several examples of private prayers from different rabbis that were inserted at this point of the Amidah. And this particular prayer, Elohai Netzor Lishoni Merah, God, guard my tongue from evil, the one we just read, that prayer is attributed to a rabbi by the name of Mar Bar Ravina. He was a late Babylonian master. We're talking somewhere between the 6th and 7th century CE. And then somehow, for some reason, by the 9th century, according to Lawrence Hoffman, this prayer had become so popular in the different rabbinical academies that when Amram Gaon, he was the Gaonim were the religious heads in the 9th and 10th centuries, when he created what is known as our first Sidor, the Sidor of Amram Gaon, he included Mar Bar Ravina's prayer at the end of the Amidah. So who knows why he chose that one, but that prayer was so beloved that he put it in there, not to say that you must say this, but to say that if you don't have a private prayer today, use this one. This is a beloved one that we get from the Talmud. What happened after that was the next major Siddur was the first prayer book in Europe called the Netzor. This was in 11th century France, and the author who compiled the information for the Siddur in 11th century France, really held Amram Gaon Siddur in high esteem, and so he wrote in there just to use whatever Amram used. So because Amram at the end of the Amidah put Marbar Ravina's prayer, so too whoever compiled the Netzor in 11th century France used that same prayer. Okay, so now we have this particular prayer becoming widespread now beyond the Middle East, also in Europe. And so then finally, by the time the printing press came around, that prayer was printed after every Amidah and essentially killed private prayer in the Amidah, because once that became widespread practice, to say it, once it became, accessible to the Jewish world in every single prayer book, people forgot, or they just didn't insert a private prayer. Instead, they just read what was in the prayer book. So we know today that this is, optional, so to speak. There are those who won't skip it because it is in the prayer book and it has become such a beloved tradition to say this paragraph. But the truth is, halachically, first of all, you don't have to say anything at the end of the Amidah. If you're in a rush, or you have to get somewhere, or there's some reason you need to end your Amidah sooner, you can totally omit an extra little benediction, a personal benediction. So this has a lower halachic status than the rest of the blessings. For instance, if you skipped the last blessing in the Amidah, if you skipped Sim Shalom, then you'd have to go back and redo the entire Amidah. Here, if you skip it, you don't need to go back and redo the Amidah. But we also know that we have this as an opportunity for private prayer. So once you get to this paragraph, you should not feel pressured to say it if the words don't speak to you. You shouldn't feel pressure to say it if you have your own prayer that you really need to get out to God. And if you notice on page 166, there's an additional option here as something else to say. So those who compiled our Siddur Lev Shalem offered another prayer from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. He's the Hasidic leader, though he's deceased. He's the Hasidic leader of the Breslover Hasids. And this is actually the one that I personally use if I don't have a private prayer. I'll read it here. It says, "Grant me the liberating joy of Shabbat, the ability to truly taste its delights. May my heart not be weighed down by sorrow on this holy Shabbat. Fill the soul of your servant with gladness, for to you, Adonai, I offer my entire being. Help me to increase the joys of Shabbat and to extend its joyful spirit to the other 6 days of the week. Show me the path of life, that I may be filled with the joy of being in your presence, the delight of being close to you forever." I think that's a beautiful prayer, especially on Shabbat. It's kind of nice, to end the Amidah with a message that's about Shabbat. So we'll take, now that we understand, kind of the halachic place of this prayer and its history, how it got here, not the Breslover one, but Marbar Ravina's prayer, God, guard my tongue from evil. Let's take a look at the contents of that prayer. And then I can't believe it, we'll be done with the Amidah, and next week we will start our trek toward the Torah service. So let's look at just the language of this prayer. It says, "My God, keep my tongue from evil and my lips from lies. Help me ignore those who would slander me." So it starts with a recognition that we are faulty, that even though in the Amidah we hold ourselves up to the esteem of angels. We hold our feet together like angels. We say Kadosh, 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 like Isaiah's vision of the angels praising God. Here, Mar Bar Ravina recognizes that we make mistakes, and he's asking God for help in not speaking Lashon Hara, which it's so easy to do. And then he says, help me ignore those who slander me, which is to say, even though we already prayed for peace, sometimes, that inner peace is very hard to achieve, especially when you have, people who are trying to, people who bother you, who are saying things about you, people who are saying things about your community. It can be really hard to ignore them and achieve that inner peace. Let me be humble before all, open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue. So, frustrate the designs of those who plot evil against me, nullify their schemes. Very similar to the help me ignore those who slander me, but an even stronger ask, which is to say, those who are planning on hurting us. See that all we want to do is open our heart to your Torah, and because we're opening our heart to you, we're asking Adonai that you in turn protect us, so that you allow us to, to continue to grow. I'm getting a call here. There we go. Turn it off. Okay. We're asking that you can help us continue to grow in Torah, and not become victim to those who are trying to hurt us. And then finally, act for the sake of your name, act for the sake of your triumph, act for the sake of your holiness, act for the sake of your Torah. Answer my prayer for the deliverance of your people. So we're saying, Adonai, please don't just do this for me, but remember that my reputation as a Jew directly impacts you, which is to say, if somebody hurts me, then you, God, who created us as a people, your reputation is going to be hurt too. And then finally, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and redeemer. So after all of this, we're asking that the words that we just spoke in the Amidah are sweet to God, and that even if we're distracted during the Amidah, even if we are, our mind is going in 1,000 different places, we're asking still that because we took the time to say these words, that they be acceptable even a little bit to God, that God actually wants our prayers. And then finally, we say one more prayer of peace. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us and all of Israel. And let us say amen. So that is the very last part of the Amidah. I wouldn't call it the last prayer of the Amidah. Okay, maybe it's a prayer. It's not a blessing like Baruch Atah Adonai, but it's certainly prayerful, we'll say. So with that, have a wonderful Shabbat. And next week, we will look at, we'll look at Kaddish Shalem, and then head out to the Torah service. Shabbat Shalom.